Okay, let's get started. Now we are discuss about the Poetics by Aristotle, chapter 2. Aristotle, the Poetics, critical appraisal. Aristotle treatise concerning the art of the poetry, usually called the Poetics, was never meant by Aristotle to be a treatise. Like most everything else of his that has survived, it wasn't composed as a book. It merely represents the lectures which he used to give his students. It may be the notes which he himself set down from his own guidance. It may be the notes which some students took of his lecturers. It may be a mixture of both. Whoever committed it to writing didn't do so for the public to read. It's abrupt, disjoint, unexplained, inessentials things are elaborated. In short, it has all the literary defect of literature note. The most important conception in it, the intellectual sense around which everything else is organized, is defined. It is mentioned by a technical team term and is frequently allowed to, but we have to make out as best we may what Aristotle means by it. It is exactly what one might expect of literature notes. The central idea of his system was seriously that which least of all needed to be written out in full precisely, that one which he could trust himself to lecture without notes. In spite of all these defects, the argument majestically reveals itself, and the arguments it is such that the poetics is not only the first thoroughly philosophical discussions of literature, but the foundations of all subsequent discussions. It is, of course, the product of a time of a fact which is most obviously apparent in the imitations of its subject matter. For literature has developed in many directions since Aristotle's time. It's fatally easy for criticism to go wrong when it is restricted or restricts himself itself a few kind and fashion in literature. It is fatal easily to take the inessential for the essentials, but Aristotle had the conscience of a philosopher. With him, discussions of the problem of literary criticism, however restricted in scope, couldn't but he be a truly philosophical discussions. What was good philosophy in but be a truly in Greece in the 4th century before Christ is good philosophy. Everywhere and in every age, much of what he say illustrate Greek thought and concern Greek literature. It must of what he say is the essence of right thinking about literature in general. In many respects, nothing has been added, and so far as one can see, nothing ever will be added to what Aristotle had to say about the art of literature. Thus, thought it must always be important to consider the literate poetics as belonging to Greek culture. For us, the important thing is to consider the book simply as an expositions of the principle of literary criticism as valid for Shakespeare and Milton as for Homer and Sophocles. Nothing could be more misleading than to attribute to Aristotle modern way of thought and feelings. Nothing could be more illuminating that than to test his principle by appealing them to modern expressions of thought and the feelings. Adopting the principles of literary criticism, Lascelles Abercrombie. Composition of poetics. The poetics, no doubt, came into being after Aristotle settled as teachers and investigators at Athens in 335 BC, and before he left Athens in 323 BC. It may have been written after both the rhetoric and the politics, but almost nothing can be safely stated regarding the chronological order of works. He taught virtually the entire critical on learning and must have given the parts in ratio so that his memoranda for different codes would exist side by side over a period of years, undergoing occasionally revisions as his knowledge and view matured. The poetics shows the authors the fullness of his power. True, it has grabbed passage arising from his as well as conscience, and there may be interpretations, though not so much as scholars once suppose, that his rapid Greek mind will let the staggate glide over inconsistencies and no and then force illustrations to suit up principle. But he is no sophist nor given to the study of words rather than substance, very fond of logic and tending perhaps to judge a poem too exclusively by formulas that has a great simple normal mind, demanding that whatever poetry may contain, it must be found in good sense. If he makes less of the superstitions element than the august figures of the god in Homer, Achilles and Sophocles deserve, he still finds some place in his theory for the marvelous, for the enthusiastic poet, and for those deities who know all things in the extremely conscious. Poetics, the number of lucid and even eloquent passage in noteworthy, we find even touches of dry humor, as in the example of best 1,000 miles long. In fact, the style is admirably suited to the matter. Aristotle, no raptly in criticisms, doesn't like Shelley or Rock's attempt poetics light in a scientific treatise on art is more like Leonardo in his treatise on painting, and Brock on the sublime and beautiful. Leonardo could produce beautiful paintings and wrote noble orations like them. Aristotle's know how to write unadorned prose in dealing with scientific topics. Okay, do like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.